Hey, squirrely boy. I'll be starting in just a minute, okay? You're watching now. Okay. Well, might as well start now. Let's just start on time for once. Okay, all right. Welcome back, everybody. No, this is not the Impact review. That'll be done when it's done. Tomorrow sometime, or more likely Saturday. But it's a new year. All the TV shows are coming back. Not all of them yet, but we got Gotham. We got the premiere of Agent Carter. And also the last new Constantine from before the winter hiatus started. I didn't get to it last time since it was the only new show that aired that week, I think. So I'll just cover it tonight. Also, we've got the Ant-Man trailer that came out the other day, if you want to talk about that. We got some major casting news with Edward James Olmos. Bill fucking Adama guesting on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. in the spring. Also, Scarlett Johansson has been cast as the Major in the Ghost in the Shell movie, which is, that probably worth talking about. I'd like to know what you guys think about that. So, yeah, that's what we've got tonight. It usually takes a while to get some good questions, so I'll let those pile up a little bit. So since we've only got 3 shows to cover this week, I figure I'll just go through all of them, and then we'll do questions in the comment section, and then we'll get to the other stuff if you want. Little disclaimer, my laptop's acting a little twitchy again. I may have to reboot the computer at some point. So if the stream cuts out, I'm working on it. So don't leave. I'll try to get it back up as soon as I can. And for the record, tonight's dinner is a chicken sandwich. Okay. So let's get started. Start with Constantine, episode 8, I believe, The Saint of Last Resorts. This is from back in, I think, November or December. Anyway, Constantine is summoned to Mexico by an ex-girlfriend for help with finding a baby that was taken by an evil something or other, which he discovers is connected to the rising darkness. While he's away, Zed gets taken by people connected to her family, apparently. I like this episode. This was probably the one where we learn the most about Constantine's character. How he's a guy who will do the right thing, but he's going to be a dick about it the whole way through. But that's just because he has to keep people at arm's length so he can do what he has to do. You get some new insight into this guy, and if you had to be prepared to drown a freaking baby for the greater good, it makes sense that you'd avoid getting close to people like that. That feels right to me. I like that. It also makes his relationships really interesting. I love that his ex is a nun. How about that? Fucking John Constantine was so traumatic that she had to take a vow of celibacy. That's fantastic. I like that I like that character. She was well constructed. There's obviously a ton of baggage there, and she wants nothing to do with him. But then they come to an understanding, which makes the twist at the end really good and really impactful. When she shot him, I was very surprised by that. That was a great swerve, and the cliffhanger with him bleeding out as the demon thing closed in on him is the kind of stuff this show could use more of, quite frankly. So I enjoyed the A-plot for the character development and the cliffhanger ending. The identity of the bad guy was not that surprising, and the fight with her was underwhelming, where, once again, Constantine just says a few magic words that solve the problem easily. But they added a new twist to it this time, where there's this other thing, this other problem to deal with afterward, and that's what gets him. Okay, that's a twist on the usual formula. Thank you, that's progress. One thing I didn't understand was why this demon, who I guess is like Eve's little sister or something, is targeting this family specifically. I was never clear on that. Or why she is supposedly less powerful than this ancient group of warlocks behind everything. But the writer made them seem like enough of a threat that I'm willing to accept that for now. Then we have this Zed subplot, really going somewhere now. There was a bit of a contrivance with Constantine telling her not to leave the house, and then she leaves the house just because, I guess. But the stuff afterward really made me like Zed a lot. We've got this guy who's after her, posing as some model from her art class, who's, they seem to be they're flirting, they're hitting it off. But then Zed sees right through the act and takes him down all by herself, and she comes off like kind of a badass here. And that was cool. She even puts up a great fight with those other two people. They still get her, but she makes them work for it. There's no damsel in distress stuff happening here, and I like that. Zed came off very well. Special effects were a little hit and miss this week. Again, the practical stuff tends to be what this show is better at, in my opinion. The door that leads to nowhere and the vampire lady's evil form were kind of hokey to me. But the placenta tree I thought was genuinely creepy, and that was done just with props and stuff, I think. So the visual effects team seems to strike the right note when they keep things more grounded. If they could go more in that direction, I think it would take the whole show up a notch. So I like this episode. This one proved that the show is getting better at serialized stories. Early on, the standalone episodes tended to be the better ones, but with this, I'm really interested in this Zed subplot, and the Rising Darkness storyline is getting new wrinkles now too. And it's too bad that the show wasn't renewed, and we only have a few more episodes, because it really has been getting better since the shaky pilot. It's too bad. Excuse me. I haven't eaten all day. Damn allergies. All right, moving on to Gotham. We had episode 11, Rogues Gallery. We had Gordon starting his new job working security at Arkham. Someone's doing electroshock on the inmates. Also, Leslie Tompkins is there. And also Barbara did things, but they were stupid. This episode was a step back for Gotham, which is a shame because the show had been getting better before the winter hiatus. And I think one of the reasons for that was because Barbara was not there. The show got more interesting after she left. After she left Gordon again, and was not appearing every week, which says a lot about how this whole character and storyline has been a big misfire. So it's no coincidence that she's back this week, and her stuff is easily the worst thing about the episode. Montoya breaks up with Barbara because they're bad for each other, apparently. That's what she says. She gives reasons like drinking and drugs, and they're toxic for each other, and we've never seen or heard about any of this. And you could apply that to their whole relationship storyline, really. This whole story, their entire relationship happened off screen. The entire thing. The reasons for their breakup happened off screen. Ergo, Barbara gets upset about this, and I really don't give a shit. If Montoya had said it's because, well, she thinks Barbara isn't over Gordon, at least I could buy that, because she clearly is not over Gordon. But instead, she pulls a bunch of reasons out of her ass that sound completely made up, because we haven't been privy to any of them. And as a result, they just don't resonate. And then Barbara calls Gordon and Ivy. Why do they call her Ivy? I don't know. But Ivy answers the phone, and Barbara gets like crazy jealous. Really? Really? You thought that was an adult woman you were talking to? Could you seriously not tell from her voice that it was like a 9-year-old kid? That seriously sounded like an adult woman to you? Wow, Barbara. Wow. You know, nothing about this Barbara character is working at all. If they wanted to phase her out of the show, I wouldn't complain. Hell, after one episode, just one episode, I would much prefer Gordon ditch Barbara and hook up with Leslie Tompkins. And considering Barbara is the future mother of Batgirl, that's a problem. A big one. But Gordon has more chemistry with Leslie, she's a more likable character, and she's Morena Baccarin. That certainly doesn't hurt. So big thumbs up for Leslie. I'm not really familiar with the character outside of Batman the Animated Series, but she was easily one of the two best things about this episode, in my opinion, the other being the Butch subplot. Everything else was problematic. This whole mystery at Arkham was not handled very well, mostly because of Dr. Lang. Excuse me. You know, he's got somebody assaulting his patients, rendering them brain dead with electroshock, and not only does he apparently not care one bit about the patient's safety whatsoever, but he's bitching at the one guy who's trying to get to the bottom of this, and then he refuses to call the police and report that a crime has been committed. Why? Because the plot demands it. And other than bad writing, there are only two ways to explain his behavior. As it turns out, he's not evil, so the final word on Dr. Lang is, I guess, is that he's just an idiot. He was written to be this intractable dumbass because Gordon needed someone to work against, and this was the only way they could think of to move the plot forward. That's pretty weak, Gotham. I'm sorry to say. Although, it did lead to a great scene when Bullock showed up. They've got Lang acting almost cartoonishly suspicious, and then Bullock walks in, and instead of playing along, Bullock basically becomes the audience surrogate and acts exactly like you would expect any normal person to act in this situation. Look, a crime has been committed here. You seem like you're trying to cover it up for some reason, so fuck off, I'm bringing your ass in. That was great. You know, I hate when characters act stupid just to advance the plot, so to have somebody call him on this behavior was very nice. Although they did shine a light on just how poorly written this character was in the process. So the Arkham stuff was not so great. I will say that it looked nice. You know, the sets were very pretty to look at. It looked kind of gothic and run down. You know, it looks like I imagined Arkham Asylum would look. Also, good casting with the inmates and that crazy nurse lady. Those actors made a lot out of relatively small parts, so they helped elevate the Arkham stuff somewhat, but they were just let down by the script. You know, then we get this stuff with Selina and Ivy. Ivy is sick, and Selina takes her to Gordon's place, even though the last time we saw them together, Selina was trying to avoid Ivy and seemed scared of her, and now she's trying to help her out? Why? All just so Ivy could answer Gordon's phone and make Barbara jealous? You don't want to try to explain that a little better? Maybe a little bit. And that little subplot could have been worked in a little better, I think. And the only other thing that really worked for me in this episode was the Butch subplot. You know, also the Penguin stuff, but he's the best thing every week. But this stuff with Butch, it surprised me how much I liked this. You know, there was nothing really amazing about it or anything, but we learn more about Butch. He gets some nice character development. We get some insight into how dangerous he is and where his allegiances are, what kind of person he is, and nothing stupid happened. That was a big plus. So I think the whole subplot with him, being tempted by this old friend of his to betray Fish Mooney and then him just shooting the guy. Yeah, I thought that was all well done. Certainly the best material this episode had to offer. To be honest, I kind of like Fish Mooney's henchman a lot more than I like Fish Mooney right now. Generally, I thought this episode was kind of weak. Butch, Leslie, and the Bullock scene were good, but otherwise, the script for this episode could have used a rewrite or two. Okay, so that was Gotham. And that brings us to the main event tonight, Agent Carter. So the way this works apparently is that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is going to be in 2 blocks. The first one they had in the fall. So then it's going away for a couple months. In the meantime, we've got Agent Carter, which is going to run for 7 straight weeks. And then S.H.I.E.L.D. comes back for like another 12 episodes in a row. So they're kind of like breaking up the seasons here, which is a fun experiment to try. I'm hoping that if Carter does well enough in the ratings, that it'll get a full season pickup for season 2, and then you can just air like an entire season, and then S.H.I.E.L.D. will finally have a decent lead-in. Because, Christ, Selfie and Manhattan Love Story were killing them in the last in the fall. God damn. They literally could not have had a worse lead-in. I think Manhattan Love Story was like the lowest rated show on network television or something. But it's gone now. And we got Agent Carter, the premiere. First 2 episodes, Now Is Not the End, and Bridge and Tunnel. Okay. The biggest hurdle that this show had to overcome with me was justifying its existence, basically. I was optimistic that it would be a good show, but when I first heard about it, I just wondered why. Out of all the characters and titles and franchises in the Marvel Universe, why is Peggy Carter getting a push like this? Not that she's bad or anything, far from it. But it's not like Peggy is a huge character in the comics or anything, not really. And with it being a period piece set in the 1940s, any tie-ins to the cinematic universe, which Marvel are all about right now, are going to be loose at best. The whole thing just seemed kind of unnecessary to me. Why is Peggy Carter getting a big network show while Jessica Jones and Daredevil and Iron Fist and Luke Cage are on Netflix? I don't have an answer to that, but I figured as long as the show is good, that stuff shouldn't matter. So I gave it a shot, and as it turns out, Agent Carter is very good. I think this was one of the stronger premieres that I've seen in the last few years, actually. The writing is very tight. The dialogue was snappy with tons of clever lines, nothing hokey or eye-roll worthy like we get with The Flash or Gotham sometimes. I love the look of the show. The camera work is very glossy and cinematic. It kind of looks like you're watching a movie here. That's something I wish Shield would do a little more of, actually. They fit in a bunch of Marvel references: Red Skull, Roxxon, Vita Rays, Vanko from Iron Man 2. They had his dad. They had Mickey Rourke's dad in there, the young version. And everything felt really organic to the story. None of it felt shoehorned in at all. So that was very good. The set design, wow. The set design is beautiful. Just aesthetically, the show looks gorgeous. The music is outstanding. As a period piece, it really works. This looks and feels like a 1940s sci-fi spy adventure. You can tell that a lot of effort went into this just in the visuals. Did you notice how like all the men were dressed in like blacks and browns and grays? And then here comes Peggy dressed in this bright blue suit and the big red hat. So she stands out against all those people. I really like it when TV and movies have fun with their visuals like that. And this show is full of little details like this. So hats off to the production crew. That was really well done. I like the cast a lot. The acting is pretty uniformly good here. Haley Atwell is wonderful. I think this role could turn into a star-making vehicle for her if this show takes off. Everyone else seems pretty solid. I'm a little hesitant about Chad Michael Murray. He's got a lot of one stigma to work off, and until he does, I'm going to be keeping an eye on him. But he does fine here. Also, I think the show is going to greatly benefit from only having 8 episodes and not having to worry about waiting for any movie tie-ins to happen, any movie tie-ins that are going to hugely affect their story, like S.H.I.E.L.D. had to put up with last season. This way, that pacing won't be an issue. There probably won't be much filler at all, and they can likely just take this show at a sprint for like 7 straight weeks. Oh my god! Fuck off! Damn phone's been ringing all day. So yeah, the pacing should be pretty tight with this show. That's a luxury that S.H.I.E.L.D. didn't have last season. Again, I'm going back to that again, but with S.H.I.E.L.D. were they could only advance the story so much before Winter Soldier came out, so they had to pace things kind of slowly until the movie tie-in happened, and they could finally be allowed to do what they wanted to do creatively. And S.H.I.E.L.D. really leveled up at that point, but before they could do that, they had to do a bunch of standalone episodes in the first half of the season that fans got a little impatient with. Not so with Agent Carter. We're diving right into the story here. By now, I think Marvel Studios has figured out that their shows work better when they're serialized. So you can tell that they've kind of figured out what works and what doesn't for their shows now. So we've got a bunch of overarching storylines right out of the gate. Peggy trying to clear Howard Stark's name. Howard being up to something unbeknownst to her. Peggy keeping her missions for Howard a secret from the secret organization that she works for. All that Leviathan stuff, whatever that is. They're getting a lot of ducks in the row here, and it's an impressive balancing act so far. I was very pleased with how well everything worked here. I do have one bone to pick, however. This show takes place in the 1940s and has a woman as the main character. Those were different times as far as gender politics are concerned. So if you didn't know it, there's a lot of social commentary going on here. Normally, I'm all for that. But it felt like they went a little overboard with it. Or, dare I say, a lot overboard with it. A lot of it works. Great, don't get me wrong. I especially like the scene where they play that radio drama with the actress going, "Oh, save me, Captain America, save me!" And it's intercut with Peggy totally kicking some bad guy's ass, That was great. But it didn't stop there. And the commentary just kept coming. and coming and coming. And it was not subtle at all. I understand that it's a different era that they're living in, but it did feel as if they were beating us over the head with the idea that Peggy is a strong woman and a super awesome secret agent surrounded by asshole, boneheaded men who can't tell their asses from their elbows most of the time and won't give her a shot. In fact, there were one or two moments where I got the impression that the writers were deliberately making the male characters seem incompetent just so Peggy would look better by comparison. You know, like the scene where she infiltrates the nightclub undercover and finds the Stark technology while the men just waltz in the front door brandishing their guns and get made immediately. I mean, like, how stupid are these guys? It's like any man who isn't physically disabled or subservient to Peggy is either an idiot or a chauvinistic jerk. I'm sure they'll flesh out the male characters later on, and that's all right. You know, there's only so many characters you can develop in 2 hours. And I thought they made good use of their time for the most part, but it did kind of feel like they were trying to bludgeon us over the head with the social commentary at times, and I'm hoping they'll be a little more subtle about that in the future. So first impressions on Agent Carter. The social commentary on gender politics could stand to be toned down a little bit, but overall, I really liked it. The action is great. The story they're setting up is really intriguing. I'm digging all the spy stuff. I love the aesthetics of it. It's beautiful to look at. You know, it seems like they really hit the ground running creatively, and it looks like the show is really going to benefit from not having any of the restrictions and handcuffs put on it by the studio that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. had to deal with when they were starting out last year. Not that I'm one of these asshole quote-unquote journalists who seem to think that you can't like Agent Carter without bashing S.H.I.E.L.D. You know, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. has turned into a great show, and I think this was a damn good start for Agent Carter too. So I give it a big thumbs up. I really enjoyed Agent Carter. This was very good. I think it was a solid start for that show. Excuse me. Okay. See if we get, all right. Talk about this week's Raw if I can. Oh my God. I really don't want to talk about Raw. God, that show was bad. Okay. Questions. Wait. Forgot. No, wait. Okay. All right. Twitter questions. I got one for Arrow. Get to that later. That gaming asshole. I love how Haley Atwell was clearly not hired for her acting ability, yet can act somehow. Hashtag all day. Okay, so you're implying that she was hired, she got the part based on her looks, and it just so happened that she's a good actress? Well, she's a gorgeous woman, certainly. Yeah, she didn't get to show a lot of chops in the first Avenger, but as it turns out, I think she proved that she's a very good actress here. I'm not saying I agree that she was hired just for her looks, but well, that's what you think. Let's see. Deluxe Man. Yeah, I think this is the first time Deluxe Man's joining us. Haley Atwell portrays Agent Carter very well. It only took me 2 episodes for her to grow on me. Only took 2 episodes for her to grow on me. Yeah, I think they benefited from her having been previously established. I guess a lot of people gravitated to her in the Captain America movies, the first Avenger, and of course, you know, they put her in Winter Soldier, surprisingly. And, she's made numerous cameos in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. now, so I think they really benefited from that character kind of taking off prior to the show. You could argue that she had been better established than Coulson had been. Had made more meaningful appearances, maybe. Coulson had cameoed in a bunch of Marvel movies, but he didn't really play like an integral role until Avengers. So you could argue that her character was better established, and I think that helped a lot. And let's can we get Gotham stuff here? All right. The Save Me one. Watching Barbara on Gotham makes me glad that Babs never really knew her mother. I don't see any way that Babs, in any of her conceptions, would ever like this woman. Yeah, they've got a problem with Barbara. Unless they feel like really deviating from the comics, I'm not sure how they can salvage this character. Maybe they can do it, but they're just taking her down one wrong road after another, and it's not getting better. It's getting worse. I was sort of ambivalent about her for a while, but now I just dread every time she has a scene because nothing is working with this character. I'm not ready to call her the Laurel of Gotham, but it's heading in that direction. I don't know what they're doing with this character, but they've got to do some surgery on her because they're stuck with her unless they really want to go different from the comics. They're going to be stuck with her because she's got to get pregnant with Babs at some point. Maybe her and Gordon could have a one-night stand, and then she could disappear for a while, and then show up 9 months later with a baby, and then drop the baby off with Gordon, and then get immediately killed off. That might work. Oh boy. Let's see. We got Ant-Man. Do that later. Let's see. That gaming asshole. Apparently, Babs can't tell a little girl from a grown-ass woman. My God. What precisely did Batgirl get from her mom's side of the gene pool other than good looks and a ticket to the Bat family? I think her looks would probably be the end of it. Otherwise, she took after her dad. Lucky her. Yeah, that Barbara's so good Lord. How could she not tell she was talking to a kid? It's not like the kid sounds much sure for her age. No, she sounds like a 9-year-old kid, and you think that's a grown ass woman? What? Oh my God! What were they thinking with that? I don't know. This character is going downhill fast. That gaming asshole. The scene with Barbara being trolled by Poison Ivy only worked for me because Ivy was hilarious. Yeah, that actress is really growing on me. She's pretty creepy. I like her. Also, I guess it's meant to point towards her being a future seductress somehow. You might have a point there. She's a few years shy of puberty still, but I think the actress might have the chops once her hormones kick in. It was funny, at least if unintentionally. Yeah, I did get a chuckle out of it, but for all the wrong reasons. That was B-movie bad. It really was. Squirrely Boy. Haley Atwell does a great job as Agent Carter. I'm really enjoying her performance on the show. Yeah, she got to show a lot of chops here. I really liked. I like when she was posing as like the health inspector, looking through the milk trucks She does a flawless American accent, and she threw a lot of like different like character little quirks in there, just to make it seem like a different person, different character. She was really well done. Yeah, this is something that Jennifer Garner was really good at on Alias. Hopefully this show will turn out better than Alias did. But yeah, Haley Atwell, she's really nailing it. See, the Save Me one. ABC needs to pick up the show for a second season, and this fall have Agent Carter Tuesdays at 8, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. at 9 for a 1-2 punch. Yeah, that's what I'm hoping. Because if you look at ABC list of programming, they really don't have a good companion piece for S.H.I.E.L.D. right now. Hence why they stuck these female skewing romantic comedies in front of it for the first half of the season, and we all saw the results. Selfie and American Manhattan Love Story tanked, and they brought S.H.I.E.L.D. down. They pulled S.H.I.E.L.D. down with them. Now S.H.I.E.L.D. has recovered a little bit now, but yeah, that lead-in really hurt them. So I'm crossing my fingers that Agent Carter does well, and the ratings for the first episode were good. They had solid ratings. I think the demographics were like a 2.0 or something. I don't know if they adjusted up. I haven't seen the adjusted ratings yet, but yeah, the ratings were good, and I'm hoping they don't drop too much, because this is as close to a perfect lead-in for S.H.I.E.L.D. as they're going to get. So I'm really hoping the show takes off. Costeletius, could you see Constantine return in a limited series, sort of like Agent Carter? Not unless the ratings pick up for these last couple episodes. I haven't been keeping tabs in the ratings for Constantine, but I know it wasn't renewed, so they can't be good. At least not enough to justify its continued existence. Maybe I know some fans are trying to. I know there's like a Save Constantine campaign on social media. I haven't seen too much of it, but maybe if they drum up support for the show and ratings pick up in the last couple episodes, which seems unlikely at this point, maybe if I had to guess, I would say probably not. But it's not unheard of. Like I think Star Trek, the original Star Trek, was brought back for another season based solely on fan support, because I think there was like a letter writing campaign or something. But stranger things have happened. If I had to guess, I don't think so, though. My advice: enjoy the last few episodes of Constantine. I don't think there's going to be any more. That gaming asshole. Haley Atwell is great. I was just pointing out we lucked out and got a good actress who is hot, not a hot actress that maybe is kind of decent. Okay, yeah, right. I'd agree with that. The Save Me one. Agent Carter had a great start. The idea of a woman who is stronger, more competent, and more experienced than all her male colleagues combined, and by all rights should be running the show. However, is treated like a second-class citizen just because of her gender in the 1940s world she lives in. It's something new and different for network TV these days. Yeah. I don't know if it's necessarily as groundbreaking as some people are calling it. We have seen shows with female leads before. They're not. You don't see them every day, but they do exist. And so I'm not sure it's making the statement that it thinks it's making. Plus, I did feel like they were hammering home all the sexist behavior, the chauvinistic behavior. I thought they were hammering that a little too hard. it almost seemed unrealistic to me. It's like, well, is every man surrounding her just a complete asshole? You know, okay, Howard Stark, okay, Jarvis, all right, Sousa, the guy who lost a leg in the war, you know, they all treat her decently, like a person, but again, every other man is just a complete dick. And it's like, well, shouldn't we get to know them a little bit as people before you start revealing this behavior? I don't know. It just seemed like they weren't exercising much subtlety here. I maybe a little bit of a finer touch there. I don't know. I guess they were just emphasizing it because that's the world they live in. I don't know. Maybe I did like the show a lot. I just thought they went a little overboard with the gender politics stuff. That gaming asshole. Also, I loved how Howard Stark invented a black hole bomb in the 1950s, because obviously that's a thing that would have been instantly forgotten and no one would ever revisit the technology, especially his son who makes and sells WMDs to mercenaries for a living. Yeah, I think they do have to be careful with stuff like that on this show so it doesn't conflict with anything that happens in the present day on S.H.I.E.L.D. and in the movies. We haven't seen any tech like that in the Marvel Cinematic Universe yet. My guess is that it'll probably be destroyed before the season is over and just not see the light of day. Possibly. It's the Ant-Man stuff. The Save Me one. I was really surprised that they killed off Colleen in the first episode. She was a likable character. I would have liked to see her stick around for a while. I didn't see that coming. Yeah, that was surprising. I think that's why they did it. They did at least manage to make her likable and sympathetic before they killed her off. I would have liked a few more scenes with her, but I think they got the most out of her while they could. And that was a pretty shocking death. I agree. Was kind of ashamed to see her die, but for a shock death, I thought it worked really well. And I do really like the girl at the diner. I think Angie is her name. I guess her and Peggy are going to be neighbors or roommates or something now. She's really cool. I like her. All right. That gaming asshole. The whole thing with Agent Carter being so hyper competent got annoying after a while. My mom watched it and she thought it was overdoing it. I mean, for interest, there is literally no way she could overpower an adult man so easily simply because of a disparity in body weight and leverage. Not necessarily. I mean, if she's a trained fighter, she could probably, there are ways, to overcome, a height and weight disadvantage. Now, the same reason I can't overpower Shaq easily. He weighs twice as much as me and has 3 times the muscle mass. Physics have to apply at a point no matter how much courage and inner strength someone has. And martial arts don't change that either, since you still need to use kinetic energy and leverage to apply it. It's a long-standing trope in fiction. Look up Wei Fu and see what I mean. Okay. You might have a point there, but it's not like Peggy is like a skinny little stick with no meat on her. She's got some muscle, and she's not a waif. I mean, she's worked out and bulked up a little bit, and maybe we are taking this with a grain of salt, but it's TV. Stranger things have happened. Talk about Raw. That gaming asshole. I actually think Agent Carter is better written than Shield, but that's just me. At the very least, they got to the chase faster. I will agree with that. Actually, I will agree that it got off to a smoother start than Shield did. Bear in mind, Shield was Marvel Studios' first TV show, and they had to learn a few lessons when that show was starting out. Lessons that they have now applied to Agent Carter, so they know not to make those same mistakes again. It's a smoother production. It's a glossier production. They kind of know what works for them and what doesn't work for them now. So I don't really think it's fair to compare season 1 of S.H.I.E.L.D. to season 2 to season 1 of Carter. I think, if anything, we ought to be comparing season 1 of Carter to season 2 of S.H.I.E.L.D. because now S.H.I.E.L.D. has kind of figured itself out. And the studio has figured itself out, which is why it seems more like Carter kind of hit the ground running, whereas S.H.I.E.L.D. had kind of a bumpy road at first. But yeah, I think it did get off to a bit of a smoother start than S.H.I.E.L.D. did. I will agree with that. But S.H.I.E.L.D. had a lot more working against it at the time. Squirrely Boy. Social politics of the time were apparent in the Agent Carter one-shot as well. Yeah, I still need to watch that. I think I found it online somewhere. I haven't seen it yet. Let's see. Duke Nukem 3DO. Do you think Peggy Carter is a bit of a Mary Sue? No, I don't think so. There might have been a danger of her becoming a Mary Sue, but we see her flaws, which is important. If she were Mary Sue, we either would not see any of her flaws, or we would, but they would not be recognized as flaws. We see how she wants so badly to be treated as an equal that she refuses to let anyone help her, and this is acknowledged as a character flaw. It's something that she has to overcome and allow other people to help her out. Some of them possibly men. We see her imperfections, and those make her more three-dimensional, and they avoid the Mary Sue stuff. Excuse me. So I think maybe there are some moments where she appears too competent or too much better than the others. That may be because the male agents are kind of dumbed down a lot. Like I said, I did think there were moments when they were making them look bad just so Peggy could look better. So I don't know if it's about Peggy being a Mary Sue. I think it might be more about the male characters being dumbed down. That could be part of it. That gaming asshole. Oh, that reminds me of something else on Gotham. I think that evil guy is supposed to be a DC villain named Dr. Bedlam, who can control people at a distance using advanced technology. If it is, though, they changed the character a lot because he was a new Gods villain from Apocalypse, but the idea remains the same. Okay, I'll take your word for that one. I'm not familiar with the characters, so I guess you would know better than I would. That gaming asshole. I did not see Peggy's roomie dying in the first episode. That one hit me like a train. Yeah, that was a really good swerve. It sucked to see her go so soon, but for deaths, it was well done. Very impactful. The Save Me one. Barbara is taking drugs now. That could be why she thought Ivy was a grown-up. Okay, maybe the drugs impaired her judgment a little bit, but she still came off looking like an idiot. Yeah, I was not ready to excuse that one away just because of some drugs. I'm sorry. So, got a Twitter question here for Arrow. Okay, we got two from Pedro Valenti at Pedro Lunian. The next two episodes are referring to Arrow. The next 2 episodes will be boring, no Olicity, no Arrow, and we have to face Laurel, Roy, and Ray as the main focus of the story. Well, I think those characters are capable of carrying a few episodes. Yeah, I think I'm looking forward to Roy getting some more focus because we haven't really focused too much on Arsenal this season, and I think that would be a good thing to give him some more to do. Because I think a lot of really important development for Arsenal has happened off screen, like just about all his training. So a few episodes where Arsenal can kind of take the spotlight. I'm looking forward to that actually. Of course, Felicity can carry an episode, no problem. You know, Diggle-centric episodes have generally been pretty good. So I think the supporting cast can carry this show for a little bit. If the Black Canary episode flops, what to do with Laurel? See, it's not just one Black Canary episode, though, because according to the producers, the next 3 episodes are going to chronicle Laurel assuming the Black Canary identity. So it's going to be 3 episodes. That's what I'm worried about. Oh, boy. Now, I talked about this previously, but Laurel has not even been training that long. A matter of weeks, a few months, maybe. If she does put the costume on, and you know, we know that basically that's going to happen now. Is she going to get herself killed? Well, she's not going to get herself killed, I'm pretty sure, but she's just going to embarrass herself. She's going to, put the rest of the team in danger because she just doesn't know what she's doing yet. I'm not sure how else they can play this. I mean, she's not going to be a great fighter already. But if she's insisting on putting on a costume and going out and fighting crime, I mean, what else can realistically happen here? Other than her just kind of getting her ass kicked. I still feel like it's way too soon for Black Canary. If they're dead set on making Laurel Black Canary, it just... Why are they rushing it so fast? Can at least wait until the end of the season. Oh. I'm not looking forward to that. I'm really not. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Moving on. So if you guys want to talk about Ant-Man or Edward James Olmos on S.H.I.E.L.D. or Scarlett Johansson in Ghost in the Shell, the movie, ask away. I think that'd be pretty interesting. Okay, we got Ant-Man here. Squirrely Boy, why do you think it is that the Marvel Cinematic Universe won't feature or even make any reference to Hank Pym? For example, the change in Ultron's origin for the next Avengers movie where he's Tony Stark's creation, while in the comics Hank Pym made him, and for the upcoming Ant-Man movie in which they're going right into the Scott Lang version. Well, they are making reference to Hank Pym. He's played by Michael Douglas in the movie. It is strange that they're going for the older version of Hank Pym. It's like, well, why not just have him be a younger guy starting out and have him be Ant-Man? Maybe they're doing this to avoid the whole spousal abuse stuff. As I understand it, Janet Van Dyne is going to be... either not around in the movie or deceased. And they've got Evangeline Lilly playing the daughter of Janet and Hank. That's a pretty big departure. I don't know why they did it. The spousal abuse thing, maybe. But yeah, it is strange that they're kind of that character has been changed so much. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt because Marvel hasn't really made any big missteps yet with these characters, but it is kind of odd, isn't it? Excuse me. Duke Nukem 3DO. Are you disappointed that Marvel is doing the Scott Lang Ant-Man instead of Hank Pym? Not especially. I'm not really attached to the character, so I'm open to them making changes to it. I am a little bewildered that they made a change like this without really knowing the reason why. What's your thoughts on the Yellow Jacket being the main villain in the upcoming movie? I'm okay with it. I saw the poster or the concept art or whatever it was. It looked pretty cool. Isn't Hank Pym Yellow Jacket though? I don't know. I didn't really start reading Avengers comics until Bendis started writing them, so I'm not sure. Plus, Hank Pym has had like 4 different superhero identities. So maybe they have somebody else take the Yellow Jacket suit. I don't know, but I'm fine with him as a villain though. Okay. Let's see. Ryan Bulkwill at YesRDB1610. What's your thoughts on the Ant-Man trailer? Okay. Not a whole lot to go on here. All we've got is a teaser. The effects look good. The cinematography looks nice. I know Peyton Reed, the director, was kind of brought in at the last minute after. What the hell's his name? The guy who did Hot Fuzz. The name just fell out of my head, but yeah, he had been attached to direct it, and then there were disagreements about the script or something, and he left, and then Peyton Reed came in at the 11th hour, so he ended up directing it. I'm fine with Peyton Reed as a director. He made Down with Love, which is a really underrated movie. So I'm not worried about the direction. It looks really nice. There wasn't a whole lot to go on. It did seem like kind of they stuck with the generic mentor trying to inspire the guy who doesn't believe in himself or something, and I'm reserving judgment until we have more to go on, like a full trailer, but I'm encouraged by the footage we saw. I wonder if Paul Rudd has the dramatic chops for a lead role like this. He's been good in comedies. I don't think I've ever seen him in a dramatic role. I expect this movie will have a good sense of humor about itself because you kind of have to when you're making a movie called Ant-Man. But I would like to see this movie do well, though. Let's see. I think that was it for Ant-Man questions, unless there are any more. Okay. Squirrely Boy. The sequences with the Captain America radio show, kind of in a way mocking Agent Carter every so often, was an interesting touch on Peggy's character development as she deals with the fact that Steve Rogers isn't around anymore, as far as she knows, that is. Yeah, I really like that. That kind of juxtaposing, her kicking ass while listening to the radio show. With the actors like, save me, Captain America, playing the damsel in distress stuff. I think that was probably the best use of the social commentary they had in the episode. If they had kept it to that, I think the point would have been made. My issue was just that they just kept throwing the commentary at you over and over to the point where it did kind of feel overdone at times. If they had just stuck with the radio drama and had that been it, I think that would have been a good balance. So I did like that stuff. But it's like they just didn't know when to quit with it. That gaming asshole. I want an episode of Agent Carter where Howard just straight up creates a Jaeger. Then no one ever mentions it again. Even in the movies, when Ultron is destroying the East Coast, it just stands there in a hangar unused. Like right next to the singularity bombs and the cancer-eating weight loss drug that cures erectile dysfunction that Howard created by accident one night on a bender. So you just want like a big warehouse full of unused Howard Stark gadgets that never got approved for like selling in stores and stuff. Just like all these crazy gadgets that have gone unused for decades. Like the cancer weight loss drug. Get the singularity bombs, and then this big fucking Jaeger and God knows what else. He's got like a perpetual motion machine over there, and I don't know, like toothpaste that makes you glow in the dark or something. I don't know. You might be able to get away with some of that. A Jaeger might be pushing it. I think the closest we're going to get to a Jaeger is going to be the Hulkbuster armor in Age of Ultron, but you might be onto something. That could be a funny scene if they put it in there at some point. Let's see. So no one talking about Edward James Olmos? I'm disappointed, guys. Man, I geeked the fuck out when I heard about that. It's Bill fucking Adama. Gonna be on S.H.I.E.L.D. That's cool as hell. I think that's all the questions. Of course, they're always out of order every time I reload this. Thank you very much, Google Plus. Okay. Oh, talk about Raw. Ugh. You know what? I'm going to talk about the Scarlett Johansson thing just because I can. So news came out a little while ago. Apparently, Scarlett Johansson has been cast as the Major in the live-action Ghost in the Shell movie. I don't hate it. There were probably better choices out there. I think we had to expect that they were going to whitewash the cast, so it doesn't surprise me that they went with a Caucasian actress. But I think it's not a bad choice. I think it depends on how the Major is going to be characterized. If they're playing her like she was in the original Ghost in the Shell movie, then no. No, that's not Scarlett Johansson. If she's more like she was in Standalone Complex, then I can see it. I would think they'd want the Major to be a little more personable, so I would expect something closer to Standalone Complex. I keep thinking there were better choices out there, but for the life of me, I can't really think of any. Emily Blunt, perhaps. I think Emily Blunt would have been really good. Well, although Scarlett Johansson is a better choice than Margot Robbie, and I heard Margot Robbie was in the running, so that's good. You know, Scarlett does have the action movie cred now, so yeah, I guess she's the big name. I guess she's going to be up for a lot of these parts now. So I can see it. I think I just have to get used to the idea. Maybe when I see her with black hair and stuff. Who knows? Talk about Raw. Why? I really don't want to talk about Raw. Raw was terrible. Oh my god! It feels like this authority thing has been going on for years. They have all this buildup, making it sound like the fate of the universe is at stake at Survivor Series when the Authority go away forever if they lose this match. And John Cena is the only one that can reinstate when they jump through all these hoops to get these people off TV, to give the fans a break for them, and then they bring them back 5 weeks later, just like that. It's such bullshit. Why? Why? Just so things can be exactly the same as they were before? I thought the point was to give the fans a break from this storyline. They're not even doing anything different with it now. It's just more authority ego stroking. Do we really need like 2 lengthy Authority promos in one show? It's only a 3-hour show, guys. Oh man. And you would think with the first Raw of the year, they want to start off with a bang to give the fans an idea that, okay, this is what you're in for the rest of the year, and it's going to be really explosive and exciting and everything. That was one of the biggest downer endings I've seen on Raw in quite some time. The Authority just berating these baby faces. John Cena, who's supposed to be the ultimate baby face, they just stand there and take it up the ass as the Authority just talk and talk and talk and talk and then fire them. And no one figures, fuck it, got nothing to lose now, and just attacks Triple H or something. That would have been cool. We don't see Randy Orton come back to get revenge on them. We don't see Cena come to the defense of these 3 guys who just got fired or anything. They just stand there like idiots as the Authority just do whatever the fuck they want. It's like these 3 guys, Cena, Ryback, Rowan, and Ziggler, were like surrogates for the audience. Like the Authority are saying, yeah, we're back and there's nothing you can fucking do about it because we're just going to do whatever the hell we want because you're going to watch anyway. That kind of stuff pisses people off. Okay, what else happened on Raw? Now the Bad News Barrett stuff. I like the Bad News Barrett character. I think the character was really catching on before he got injured again. And he was kind of playing a babyface last week. Then you kind of shoehorn him into a heel role again here, even though that's not really what the audience wants, I don't think. You cut off Ziggler's momentum when he was finally getting some. Of course, it's the IC title, so who really cares? That belt hasn't meant anything in years. Oh, God. Oh, the Ascension. What the fuck are they doing to the Ascension? I don't watch NXT, really, so I'm not familiar with these guys. But I've heard from enough people on Twitter that said that Vince McMahon must have had his fingerprints all over these guys because they came off a lot better on NXT, and I believe it. It seems like they brought the Ascension up to the main roster just to sabotage them, intentionally. You know, you had them dressed like LOD wannabes. Cut this terrible promo saying how they're better than LOD. Oh, yeah, we're better than Road Warriors. What a joke. Oh, God, the promo was painful. It was terrible. And then you have the announcers intentionally bury these guys. What is that supposed to accomplish? Okay, they say they're better than the Road Warriors, and then the announcers are saying, these guys couldn't carry the Road Warriors' bags. You know, these guys are jokes. And it's like all the announcers are in agreement that they're kind of talking out of their asses here. What? For what purpose? What are they trying to do with this? The only thing that makes any sense to me is that they're intentionally burying them. Maybe the Ascension pissed in somebody's coffee. I don't know, but these guys are tanking. Because, I mean, this gimmick is just, If the wrong person got a hold of this gimmick and just twisted it around, it's just not working at all. This thing is sinking fast. What the hell else happened? I don't know. Not a good Raw, guys. Really not. Dare I say it? That was the worst Raw of the year. The only Raw of the year. Who cares? It was still the worst. Okay. That gaming asshole. It's going to be 3 episodes. Fuck this life. Yeah, that the producers said that. Yeah, it's going to be 3 episodes chronicling Laurel becoming Black Canary. So, I think the next 3 episodes in a row. I'm not looking forward to it either. The Save Me one. Do you think in the upcoming Laurel arc she could learn the Canary Cry that could explain how she becomes a superhero so fast? I really don't think so. The producers seem very hesitant to have anyone with any honest-to-God superpowers on the show, unless it's The Flash. I think Sarah had that had the Canary Cry that came out of that little speaker box thing that was loud enough to shatter glass. I think that's the closest thing we're going to get to the Canary Cry on this show. And honestly, I prefer it that way. You know, they can kind of cheat the no powers rule with like Mirakuru type stuff, but otherwise, I prefer Arrow to be grounded in reality as much as possible. So, yeah, Giving Laurel superpowers, no. That is not necessary. Although I really don't know how they're going to explain how she becomes Black Canary so quickly. Unless she just flat out sucks at it at first and she has to learn like on the job as she goes along, getting her ass kicked over and over until she just learns how to fight. I don't know how they're going to do this. Squirrely Boy, you might have answered this before, but do you watch NXT? If so, who do you like on there? I'll watch a match occasionally. I don't really follow it too closely though. As I understand it, it's a really good show. A lot of people rave about it. They say it's the best show WWE puts on. I have a tough time with it though because it seems so inconsequential to me. There's a serious disconnect between NXT and the main roster. So just because somebody excels at NXT, is a superstar at NXT, that's no guarantee that they'll be the same character or be doing the same things or wrestling the same way when they get to the main roster. Because once they get to because there's different writers and different creative teams responsible for each show. And those people are going to have different ideas about how a talent should be used. You know, look at Paige in NXT and look at Paige on Raw. There's a big difference there. You know, I don't think anyone's going to argue that she was booked much better on NXT. She was. You know, she was one of the few Paige was one of the few people I would tune into NXT to watch. But I mean, her feud with AJ was booked horribly, just completely aimless most of the time. And now I think she turned face off screen, so that she just shows up on Raw and she's a face for some reason. When the hell did that happen? They got no idea what to do with her half the time. And that's probably going to apply to a lot of people who get brought up from NXT. The Ascension, I never saw the Ascension on NXT, but pretty much everyone who has, that I know, has been saying that, you know, Vince ruined them. Said they were really good on NXT, but you know, they show up on Raw and they're horrible. Because the gimmick was changed and they're completely different now. And I believe it. So just because somebody is great on NXT, it's really no guarantee whatsoever that it's going to translate to the main roster. Because there's just not enough connective tissue between the two brands, and they really need that. So yeah, I have trouble getting into NXT. Who do I like on there, though? You know, like Sami Zayn, Adrian Neville, Becky Lynch, I like a lot. Of course, I was a fan of her previously when she was Rebecca Knox. She's really cool. But I really don't watch it much at all, really. So if that's it, let's just check this one more time. That might be it, I think. Oh, that gaming asshole. Yeah, Pim is Yellow Jacket, but there was also an evil female Yellow Jacket too, so I have no idea where they're going other than perhaps the most telegraphed betrayal ever if Pim turns out to be a villain. I would hope they won't go that route. Also, Ant-Man can grow to like 60 feet tall, so he's not just a shrinking guy. Okay. I wasn't sure if they were going to be doing I wasn't sure if they were going to have him growing too. Yeah, maybe they'll save that for the sequel. Yeah, all we saw in the trailer was him shrinking, so that might be the limit of it, but who knows? But yeah, I'm fine with the Yellow Jacket as the bad guy, whether it's a him or a her. You know, either one is cool. Haven't had many female villains in the Marvel universe yet, in the cinematic universe anyway. Was it? I think Nebula might have been the first one actually, and she was really cool. Yeah, I'd like a female Yellow Jacket as the villain. That'd be really interesting. Okay. Are you referring to the director of Hot Fuzz? If so, that's Edgar Wright. Yes, Edgar Wright. That's his name. I always forget his name for some reason. I don't know why. The Save Me one. Unconfirmed reports that Angelina Jolie is on the top of the list of actresses to play Medusa in the Inhumans movie. If you say so. I don't think that movie comes out until like 2018, so they've got a few years. I would hope they go for someone a little less recognizable than Angelina Jolie. You know, she's one of those actors where I can't really see a character; I just see the actor because they're just so recognizable. You know, at least if Vin Diesel is playing Black Bolt, then they kind of cover him up with like the hood and stuff. Plus, he wouldn't be talking, so there's there's more of a character to hide behind. But Angelina Jolie as Medusa, I don't know if I like that. That might just be speculation, though, because I mean, I think any major casting decisions are probably a ways off because they got a few years for that one. But I think they might be thinking about it. Who knows? Because Vin Diesel is teasing that he'll be playing Black Bolt. So you never know. Okay, I think that's everything. So that's a good place to end it for the night, I think. Before my laptop inevitably starts giving me trouble again, because I've had to reboot it a couple of times today already. So rather than stretch my luck, I think I'll end it there for the night. Thanks everybody for joining me. I think we still got a couple weeks before Arrow and Flash come back, and Shield comes back in March. So for the time being, we're going to have Gotham, Constantine, and Agent Carter. That's going to be the next few weeks. So thanks for joining me. It's good to be back. And I really have no outro planned here. So I'm kind of rambling. But that'll be it for the night. Thanks for tuning in. See you guys same time next week. Later.